Welcome to another tutorial video. We're going to be discussing a bunch of different topics today, including EBITDA, EBITDAR, the Sopranos, and also a Chinese oil field services company. And by the end, you will understand how all these seemingly random points are actually related. So if you want the short version of this tutorial on EBITDAR, you can go to our accounting knowledge base page and then the EBITDAR link there. I will pin this URL below the video so you can click it. It'll be the first comment listed in the comment section below as well. As always, I'm going to start with the short answer and then go into more of an Excel-based demonstration here where we go through some of the formulas and calculations. So EBITDAR stands for earnings before interest, taxes, depreciation, amortization, and rent, and it's a metric commonly used to normalize companies with different leasing and ownership policies, and also US and non-US companies if you happen to be comparing both in the same set because the accounting standards are different. Now, previously in the EBITDA tutorial, we went through this clip from The Sopranos where Paulie explains the concept of EBITDA.
And of course, Tony, there'd be a severance package for you.
Frankly, Jason, I don't think you should sell the business right now. There's a lot of potential buyers out there. Let me get out of the hospital, run the numbers, get you the best price.
No, Chinelli's offer seemed fair.
There's lots of things to take into account. You even know what your EBITDA is?
My what?
Earnings before interest, taxes, depreciation, and amortization. Gives the true picture of a company's profitability.
As we mentioned, though, the takeaway from that is not exactly accurate because EBITDA is not the true picture of a company's profitability, and EBITDAR is even further removed from a company's profitability. Really, EBITDAR is most useful in the case where one company leases all of its assets and the other owns all its assets. If you use EBITDA in that case, you might get a misleading picture, but if you use EBITDAR, you will normalize for that. So I'll bring up an example right now. These are two companies following US GAAP. One of them rents all of its assets, one owns all its assets, and the one that rents all its assets records a $50 million operating lease expense for the rent. The one that owns all its assets has $30 million in PP&E depreciation, and since it funded these assets with debt, it also has $20 million of interest on the debt. Now, the net incomes for both companies are the same because the overall impact here is the same for renting versus owning, but if you just look at EBITDA, you can see the issue. The one that rents all its assets appears to have a much lower EBITDA at around a 20% margin. The one that owns its assets has a higher margin of around 25% because EBITDA adds back the depreciation and it completely excludes the interest expense from the start. So to adjust for this, you can take EBITDAR instead, which takes EBITDA and then adds back the company's rental expense. And if you do it like this, both companies end up having the exact same number for EBITDAR and the same exact 25% margin. EBITDAR is also useful if one company uses finance leases and the other uses operating leases. These are different because finance leases often have some type of bargain purchase option at the end of the lease, among other criteria that essentially make them closer to ownership in a lot of ways. EBITDAR is also useful if you are comparing US GAAP-based companies with companies that follow IFRS. If you are working purely with IFRS-based companies, EBITDAR is somewhat useless because it's the same as EBITDA or 99% the same in most cases. So to show you a quick example, if we pull up this report from LATAM Airlines, the largest airline in South America, they actually have a breakout of EBITDA versus EBITDAR, and as you can see, it is nearly the same, and in some periods it actually is exactly the same. It's a little bit different because companies under IFRS can still classify short-term leases as rental expense and show rental expense for them, but it's virtually the same in this case, so we'd say there isn't really a point in having both EBITDA and EBITDAR for a company like this. If you calculate valuation multiples based on EBITDAR, and EBITDAR is in the denominator, you need to include all lease liabilities in the enterprise value numerator, and the same goes if you are looking at something like debt to EBITDA, for example. So if we go back to our Excel file right here, and we look at how the EBITDAR multiple is calculated, it is based on the standard enterprise value calculation, equity value minus cash plus debt, but then we also factor in the operating lease liabilities right here. Since we are using the EBITDAR metric, these lease liabilities that correspond to the rent must be added in the numerator. So that is the short version of EBITDAR, how it's calculated, how it's different, and how it's useful. If you want more details, here is what the rest of this tutorial covers. First, I'll show you how to actually calculate EBITDAR and some of the US GAAP versus IFRS differences. Then we'll talk about valuation multiples and credit stats. Then we'll go through EBITDAR in real life for China Oilfield Services, which is one of the companies featured in our oil and gas modeling course. So this example is a little bit exaggerated because we are looking at two companies, one of which, company A, rents all of its equipment, properties, and other assets, and then company B, which owns all of its equipment, properties, and other assets. In real life, you're probably not going to see this because for most companies, it's a mix of both. There's always a mix of leasing and ownership. But as I showed you before, EBITDA can give a very misleading picture of profitability or the approximate cash flow because it excludes or ignores the full cost of debt-funded ownership. And so to adjust for this, you can add back the rental expense for both companies, assuming that they both follow US GAAP. So going into Excel, to calculate EBITDA in this case, we'd start with operating income, and then we would simply add back the depreciation. Now in this case, these companies are following US GAAP. There are no finance leases, so they just have their PP&E that they own directly. So that's the only depreciation line to add back right here. And then for the margin, we can take EBITDA and divide by the revenue up here. We have that. And then for EBITDAR, we just start with our EBITDA, and then we add back the rental expense right here. And for the margin, we can take this and divide by revenue up here at the top. We have that, and that's how you can normalize in this case. Now, under IFRS, companies A and B in this case with 100% leasing and 100% direct ownership would actually have the same accounting. And if you scroll down, you can look at this. Because under IFRS, if a company rents versus owns its assets, it's actually recorded in the same way. If a company rents all its assets, the company actually records lease depreciation for 30. If it owns all its assets, it still has depreciation, but it just calls it PP&E depreciation or depreciation of owned assets or something like that. And in both cases, there's still interest. If it's direct ownership funded by debt, it's just traditional interest paid on debt. If it's lease interest, as it is here, then it's called lease interest. But in both cases, the overall impact is the same, the net income is the same, and under IFRS, EBITDA and EBITDAR are exactly the same in this case for both companies, which is why this metric is a little bit pointless if you are comparing strictly companies that use IFRS. So let's go into valuation multiples and credit stats now and discuss this in a little bit more detail. The overall principle here is that if the denominator of a valuation multiple excludes or adds back an expense, then the numerator should include or add the corresponding liability. It's simplest to think about this if you consider something like the EBITDA multiple on enterprise value. So EBITDA, by its very definition, excludes or adds back the company's interest expense. Interest corresponds to debt, and so therefore, enterprise value includes or adds debt so that when you calculate the enterprise value to EBITDA multiple, you have debt in the numerator, and then you have the expense corresponding to it, the interest expense that is excluded or added back in the denominator. So under IFRS, there isn't really too much to do here because EBITDA excludes the full lease expense, and by default, you typically always count all the lease liabilities in the enterprise value calculation under IFRS anyway, so you don't really have to do too much there. But under US GAAP, if you're using EBITDAR, then you have to add the operating lease liabilities to enterprise value, and you have to ensure the finance lease liabilities are there as well. Now, often they're counted within debt, but not always, so you have to be careful of that point. At the bottom of the sheet, I have an example like this, where the companies have finance lease liabilities, debt, operating lease liabilities, and the bottom line is that, yes, adding operating lease liabilities is definitely part of the process and is something you should do if you're going to use the EBITDAR metric, but you also have to be careful that the finance lease liabilities are either added explicitly or they're already part of the debt balance. Many companies under US GAAP actually list finance lease liabilities within debt, but not all of them, so you have to be a little bit careful and read through the notes and the filings carefully to make sure you get the treatment correct right there. Now, I've been mentioning how EBITDAR is useful for normalizing direct ownership versus leasing and US GAAP versus non-US GAAP-based companies, but it can also be useful if the companies you're analyzing use different lease types. So if one company uses finance leases and the other uses operating leases. Under US GAAP, it is still recorded quite differently. If one company uses operating leases, you're still going to see a rental expense. But if another company uses finance leases, even though financially it's the same, it's still a lump sum cash payment, they're going to split it into finance lease depreciation and finance lease interest. And so in a scenario like this, EBITDA and EBITDAR are also quite useful. If you calculate enterprise value the traditional way, so cash, debt, finance lease liabilities, and divide it by EBITDA, the comparison is a little bit misleading in this case because it looks like one company is just trading at a lower multiple than the other one. But if you adjust for this by adding the operating lease liabilities and making sure the full lease liabilities are included in both metrics, and then you divide by EBITDAR, you get a much fairer comparison, which indicates that the companies are valued at about the same level right now, because the fact that they're using different lease types isn't really something that should affect their valuation. It's really more of an operational decision than anything else, but the overall cash flow impact here is the same. With credit stats, it's the same idea. If you're using EBITDAR under US GAAP, you want to make sure that debt includes all the lease liabilities, finance leases and operating leases. And so debt to EBITDA is a valid metric. Debt including all lease liabilities divided by EBITDAR is a valid metric, but debt divided by EBITDAR is an invalid metric because debt here does not include all the lease liabilities. Operating lease liabilities are missing and finance lease liabilities may be missing. You have to check that and be very careful with how the company discloses its financials. So let's now move to the last point and talk about EBITDAR in real life. One common use case is when you have US and non-US companies in a global set of comparable public companies. This often happens in industries that are related to commodities or shipping or transportation. So things like oil tankers, oil field services, mining companies, anything like that could be in this category. In our oil and gas course, we look at China oil field services, and we use enterprise value, including all lease liabilities divided by EBITDAR, because some firms in this set use US GAAP and others use IFRS. So let's bring up the Excel file with the public comps, and you can see we have a huge variety of different companies here. Some are based in the US, some are in the UAE, some are in the UK, some are in Italy, Luxembourg, Netherlands, Switzerland. There is a huge list of different countries here. And so in the valuation multiples, we actually calculate EBITDAR. And the way we do it is that we take EBITDA, and then for any company that follows US GAAP, we take the EBITDA number, and then we add our estimate of what the operating lease expense for the year is, or the rent if the company discloses it directly. So for example, for Baker Hughes, they disclose about $346 million in annual operating lease expense corresponding to the rent. And so to calculate EBITDAR, we take EBITDA and simply add that number. And then in the enterprise value calculation, if you look at how this works, it is the traditional calculation, but the difference is that we're adding all lease liabilities. So even for a US GAAP-based company, it's not just finance leases here, it's actually the operating lease liabilities as well that we count in this total. Now, if you look at the valuation output for something like this, let's go over to the valuation summary tab or the valuation graph tab. You can see our conclusions here for the company. It seems to be somewhat undervalued, at least. We'd say modestly to substantially undervalued. And if we used EBITDA instead of EBITDAR right here, we might get a somewhat different result, but it wouldn't necessarily be wrong or the end of the world. We would just say that it would be less than ideal or it would be less accurate because of some of these accounting differences. But this is a real world example of how EBITDAR might actually come up. That's about it. So let's do a quick recap and summary. I went through the EBITDAR calculations and US GAAP versus IFRS comparisons. It's not super useful for pure IFRS-based companies, but it is useful for comparing US and non-US companies. It's also useful within the US for comparing companies with direct ownership versus mostly leases, and also companies that use finance versus operating leases, and companies with just a different mix of leases or ownership in general. You start with EBITDA and add back rent, or you start with EBIT, operating income, add depreciation and amortization, and then add the rent on top of that. With the valuation multiples, if you're using EBITDAR, make sure that all the lease liabilities are included in the enterprise value numerator. If you're using a credit stat like debt to EBITDA, you can use EBITDAR as well, but it's the same principle. You have to make sure all the lease liabilities are added to debt in that case. And then I showed you how to use EBITDAR in real life in our oilfield services valuation for China oilfield services. It's very useful there because it's a global set of comps. The companies operate globally. They have multiple headquarters internationally. And so it's most appropriate to use a metric like EBITDAR and the EBITDAR multiple that normalizes for accounting differences. That's about it. Hopefully now you know a little bit more about this and how that quote from the clip we referenced from The Sopranos in the beginning is not accurate for EBITDA, and it's even less accurate for EBITDAR because EBITDAR is even further away from companies' profits or cash flows, but it is very useful for normalizing and comparing different companies.